There are moments in life when you look back and realize exactly when everything changed. For me, it was on an ordinary training day, when my coach pulled me aside after practice. I thought I was in trouble. I thought I was going to get chewed out for messing up that last drill. But what he wanted to tell me had nothing to do with sports. My name is Raphael. I'm 19 years old, and for most of my life, I've been trying to fit into a box that was never made for me. I grew up in an environment where a man had to be one way only. You know the deal: play sports, be tough, chase women, prove your manhood constantly. And I tried. God, how I tried. Since I was a kid, I always felt something was wrong. While my friends talked about girls with that sparkle in their eyes, I faked interest. I memorized lines, imitated reactions, built a persona that wasn't mine. It's exhausting to live like that. It's like wearing clothes 3 sizes too small every single day and pretending you're comfortable. When I joined the track team at 16, I saw an opportunity. Sports is pure masculinity, right? If I stood out there, nobody would question. Nobody would look at me with that suspicion I felt in the school hallways. So I trained. I trained until my muscles screamed, until I had no energy left to think, until I was so tired I didn't need to pretend anymore because there simply wasn't room to feel. That's when I met Coach Marcelo. 50 years old, former professional athlete, with an iron reputation. Everyone spoke of him with respect mixed with a bit of fear. He was one of those men who doesn't need to yell to have authority. His presence is enough. Gray beard, always well-groomed, broad shoulders that still held the memory of years of competition. He had that serious, professional demeanor that left no room for weakness. The training field was my refuge and my prison at the same time. You know that smell: wet grass mixed with dirt, sneakers pounding the ground, hard breathing all around, the whistle slicing through the air. That's where I felt safest because everything made sense. Run faster, jump higher, be better. Period. No room for doubts when you're chasing a personal record. Marcelo was demanding, but fair. He saw potential in me that I couldn't see in myself. In the first few months, he pushed me beyond my limits, and I loved it. I loved it because when he shouted, "Faster, Raphael," I didn't need to think about anything except running faster. My mind went blank. It was a relief, but there's something about constant pressure. It shapes you, but it also reveals who you really are. And the more I trained, the more I pushed myself to be the perfect athlete, the more I felt that internal crack growing. That discomfort of living someone else's life. I avoided the locker room like the plague. I'd time my arrivals after everyone changed or leave early. Because in there, between the steam and talk about hookups, I felt like an actor who'd forgotten his lines. The other guys talked naturally about girls' bodies, about attractions I just couldn't feel. And worse, I felt other things I couldn't admit even to myself. Glances that lasted a second too long. A warmth in my chest when a teammate passed too close. Thoughts I buried quickly, with shame and fear. It was on an October day, overcast sky, late afternoon, that everything started to fall apart. Or rebuild itself. I'm still not sure which. We had just finished a heavy endurance workout. I was exhausted. Muscles burning, lungs on fire. Most of the guys had already left. The field was almost empty. Just the wind in the bleachers and that orange light of sunset hitting the goalposts. I was putting away the cones when I heard his voice behind me. "Raphael, can you stay for a minute?" My stomach tightened. When a coach pulls you aside like that after everyone's gone, it's usually bad news. I immediately ran through what I'd messed up. Did I bomb the last jump? Was I late? "Sure, coach," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. He was leaning against the metal fence, arms crossed, but there was something different in his posture. It wasn't the usual rigidity. There was a softness I had never seen before. He looked at the horizon for a long moment before speaking. "Are you okay, kid?" That threw me. He wasn't asking about my performance, my technique, or my times. He was asking about me. Actually asking. And nobody did that anymore. Yeah, I'm fine," I lied automatically. It was my default answer to everything. He looked at me with those brown eyes that had seen a lot, and I felt like he could see through the lie. But he didn't push. Not in that moment. Instead, he said something that changed everything. "You know, Raphael, I've trained hundreds of athletes. And there's one thing I've learned. We don't run just with our legs. We run with our minds, with our hearts, with everything we carry inside. And you're carrying something too heavy. I felt my throat tighten. That armor I had built over the years began to crack. There, in that empty field with the sound of the wind and the smell of earth, I was being seen. Really seen. And it was terrifying and liberating at the same time. "I don't know what you're talking about, sir." I tried to defend myself, but my voice came out weak. Marcelo half smiled, not mocking, just understanding. "Look, kid, you don't have to talk now. But whenever you want to about anything, my door's open. And I mean anything, not just sports stuff." There was a silence full of meaning. And in that moment, something inside me moved. A small hope, frightened, but alive. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something in his expression I had never seen before. It wasn't the mask of the professional coach. It was something more human, more vulnerable. "Because I was you once, Raphael." My heart stopped. The world stopped. 6 words. And everything I thought I knew about who he was, who I was, what was possible, it all exploded. "You?" I began, but couldn't finish the sentence. He nodded slowly. 50 years teaches you a lot. The biggest lesson? Pretending to be someone else doesn't make you strong. It makes you invisible. Even to yourself. I didn't know what to say. My mind was racing in 1,000 different directions. Coach Marcelo, the man I saw as the ultimate symbol of traditional masculinity, the guy everyone respected, who had a wife, who had a seemingly perfect life. But you, everyone, you're married, I managed to say, confused. He smiled, but it was a sad smile. I am. 22 years of marriage. And you know how many of those years I was really happy? Really myself? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. We build prisons for ourselves, Raphael, built with bricks of expectations, cemented with fear, barred by, what will people think? Then we spend our whole lives trapped inside, looking out and imagining what freedom would feel like. Tears began to burn my eyes, but I blinked hard to hold them back. I couldn't cry. Not there. Not in front of him. But it was so hard to hold back. "I'm scared." The words came out before I could stop them. And once I started, I couldn't stop. "I'm scared of what my parents will think, what the guys on the team will say, how everything will change. I'm scared of being rejected, of being alone." Marcelo took a step toward me. Not too close, respecting my space, but close enough for me to feel his presence like an anchor. "That fear won't go away completely," he said gently. "But you know what's worse than fear? Regret. It's hitting 50 and looking back at a life you never actually lived, at a man you never actually were. How do you handle it?" I asked. "How do you do this every day?" His expression grew even heavier. "Badly," he admitted. "I handle it badly. That's why I'm telling you this now. If I can stop you from making my mistakes, if I can help you be honest with yourself while you still can, then maybe everything I've been through means something." The sky was darkening rapidly. The field lights began to turn on automatically, creating small islands of brightness in the twilight. And in that space between day and night, between who I was and who I could be, I felt I was at a crossroads. "What do I do now?" I asked, and my voice came out small, scared, raw. "Now you go home," Marcelo said gently. "You rest. You think. And when you're ready, if you want to talk more, we'll talk. No pressure. No expectations. Just 2 human beings trying to understand who they really are." I nodded, unable to speak. I grabbed my backpack, felt its familiar weight on my shoulders. But everything seemed different now. The world was the same, but I had changed. Or maybe I was just beginning to allow myself to be who I always was. When I was almost at the field exit, I heard him call again. "Raphael?" I turned. You're stronger than you think, and braver too. Just by continuing to show up, by continuing to try, you already show that. I couldn't respond. I just nodded and left. The walk home was strange. I walked the same streets as always, saw the same houses, the same trees, but everything seemed charged with new meaning, as if a film had been removed from my eyes. Coach Marcelo. The man I looked up to. The man I envied. He'd just told me he was living a lie, that he was trapped. And weirdly, that gave me hope. Because if even he, with all his strength, his reputation, wrestled with the same stuff, then maybe I wasn't alone. Maybe more people struggled with this than I thought. But it also filled me with a new fear. Because if a 50-year-old man, married, established, was still trapped, what did that say about my chances? Was it possible to be free? Really free? Or do we just learn to live with the chains? I got home and my mom asked how practice went. It was good, I answered automatically. Another lie in a long chain of lies. But this time, the lie hurt differently. It hurt because I had just seen what it does to a person over decades. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't sleep. I kept reliving the conversation, his words, the pain in his voice when he talked about regret, the unexpected kindness, that crack in the tough coach's mask. And I kept thinking, what did he mean by, I used to be you? Had he gone through the same fears? The same doubts? Had he loved someone in secret? Had he hidden who he really was? There was so much I wanted to ask, so much I needed to know. But I was also so afraid. Afraid of opening that door and not being able to close it again. Afraid that once I admitted it out loud, there would be no going back. But you know what was worse than the fear? It was the hope. That small and dangerous hope that maybe, just maybe, I could be myself. That there was a way. That I wasn't condemned to live an entire life pretending. The next day, when I arrived for practice, everything seemed normal. Marcelo was there, in the middle of the field, whistle around his neck, stopwatch in hand, shouting instructions, as if our conversation had never happened. And part of me felt relief. Part of me wanted it to be just a dream, an aberration, something we could forget and go back to normal. But when our eyes met, for a split second, I saw that same kindness from yesterday, that recognition. And I knew nothing would be normal again. Because now I knew. He saw me. Really saw me. And that was the scariest and most liberating thing that had ever happened to me. His office was small, cramped even. Cork walls covered in old team photos, medals hanging on rusty nails, the smell of sweat mixed with stale coffee. The only window faced the empty parking lot. Outside, night had swallowed everything else. He closed the door slowly, didn't lock it, but the click of the handle echoed as if he had. "Sit," he said, pointing to a plastic chair on the opposite side of the desk. I obeyed. My hand was still shaking, and I shoved it in my sweatpants pocket to hide it. He didn't sit down immediately. He stood there, leaning against the edge of the desk, arms crossed. The fluorescent light above us flickered occasionally, creating shadows that moved on their own. "Are you afraid of me?" he asked. I swallowed hard. "No." "Liar." He didn't smile, but something in his eyes softened. "It's okay. I was afraid too." I looked up. Of what? He finally sat down, but not in the chair. He stayed right there, on the desk, legs swinging, eyes fixed on mine. Of everything. Of who I was. Of who I wasn't. Of who I wanted to be. My heart started beating faster. It wasn't the answer I expected. "I wasn't always like this," he continued. And for the first time, his voice sounded different. Human. Almost fragile. "When I was your age, I was thin, scrawny. The kind of kid who got beat up at recess and faked being sick to skip school. I couldn't believe it. The man in front of me was a mountain, a colossus, and he was telling me he used to be like me. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice coming out quieter than I wanted. "Because I see you, and I see myself, and I know what you're feeling." Silence. The light flickered again. Are you married? I blurted out without thinking. The question just came out, but I had to know. I had to understand if what I was feeling was real or just in my head. He laughed, but it was sad. I was. 5 years. An incredible woman. Beautiful, smart, patient. She deserved better. Why did you break up? He looked me in the eyes, and I felt like he was stripping me bare. Not physically, emotionally. Like he could see every secret I was trying to hide, because I couldn't be what she needed. Because every time I looked at her, I was lying. To her, to myself, to everyone. My stomach tightened. About what? About who I really am. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. I wanted to look away but couldn't. It was like we were trapped in that tiny space while the rest of the world disappeared. Have you ever questioned your sexuality? He asked, direct, no beating around the bush. I froze. My throat went dry. I felt the blood rush to my face. I don't know, I stammered. I think so. No. Maybe. I don't know. He nodded, as if that were the most normal answer in the world. I didn't know either. Or I did, but I pretended I didn't. Different thing. What do you mean? Knowing and accepting are two different worlds. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, closer now. I always knew, since I was a kid. But I fought it with everything I had. I literally built armor. Every muscle I gained was another layer. Every promotion, every compliment, every time someone respected me, it was another brick in the wall between who I was and who I pretended to be. Tears burned in my eyes. I blinked quickly, trying to hold them back, but one escaped. And did it work? My voice came out choked. No. He shook his head. Never works. What you hide doesn't disappear. It grows, until it blows up. And when did it explode? I asked. He took a deep breath, gathering himself. I fell in love. Once. It was intense, desperate, destructive. My heart raced. With who? He didn't answer immediately. His eyes wandered around the room, over the photos on the walls, over the medals that no longer shone. When he looked back at me, there was something different in his gaze. Something exposed. Someone I couldn't be with. That's what I told myself. But you loved them anyway? I tried not to love. I fought against it. I hated myself for it. But yes, I loved. And what happened? I ran, ended the marriage, quit my job, moved cities. I thought if I started fresh, far away, I could erase it. But you can't erase who you are. You just delay it. I wiped my face with my sleeve. I couldn't hold it back anymore. Do you still love that person? He stayed silent for a long time. The light flickered. Outside, a car passed through the parking lot, its headlights illuminating the window for a second before disappearing. I learned to live with it, he finally said. But no, I didn't forget. And I don't think I ever will. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to comfort him. Part of me wanted to ask if he was talking to me or someone from his past. But before I could say anything, he stood up. Come here, he said, extending his hand. I hesitated. Why? Just come. I stood up, my hand shaking as I reached for his. He pulled me closer, but gently. He put his hand on my shoulder. I see you hiding, kid. Trying to be small so you don't make waves. But not here. Not with me. My chin trembled. I don't know how to be anything else. You'll figure it out. How? By trusting. First in me, then in yourself. He let go but stayed close, eyes still on mine. Do you want to stop? He asked suddenly. Stop what? This conversation. If you want to leave now, no problem, no judgment. You decide. I should have left. Every rational part screamed to get out. But I couldn't. I didn't want to. I want to stay, I said, my voice steady for the first time. He nodded, then listened to what I'm going to tell you. I waited. You're not alone. Never were. Everything you're feeling, The confusion, the fear, the need to understand who you are. I've felt all of it. And I made it. You will too. How do you know? Because you had the courage to come here, to seek me out, to stay, even though you were afraid. That's more than I did at your age. I shook my head, trying to process everything. I don't know what to do, I confessed. You don't need to know right now. You just need to be willing to find out. He walked to the desk, grabbed a piece of paper, scribbled something, and handed it to me. I looked. An address. A time. Tomorrow at 6. What is this? I asked. A place where you'll understand. Understand what? He put his hand on the door handle, ready to open it. But first, he looked back at my still confused face. That you're not alone. That there's a whole community. And if you want, tomorrow I'll show you. He opened the door. Light flooded in. I blinked. And if I don't go? Then you keep living like this. But if you show up? He paused, half lit, half in shadow. Everything changes. He left. The door stayed open, but I didn't move. I stood there, holding that piece of paper like it was a life sentence, or a lifeline. I heard his footsteps fade down the hallway, echoing, then fading to nothing. And then there was silence. But it didn't feel scary anymore. The next day, I'm standing outside a coffee shop, rain starting to fall, window fogged. Inside, he's at a corner table, stirring coffee. My heart's pounding so hard I can feel it. 3 times I nearly turned away. 3 times I made myself take one more step. I pushed the door open. The bell above it chimed my arrival. He looked up and smiled, not his coach smile. Something softer, more real. I thought you wouldn't come, he said when I sat down. Me too. The first couple hours felt normal. We talked about work, the city, surface stuff. But there was tension. We both knew what was coming. He went first. Can I ask you something personal? I nodded, stomach tight. Are you married? Dating? Single? Caught me off guard. It's complicated. Single on paper, but emotionally lost. He laughed, but sad. Completely understand. I've been married 20 years. The world stopped. Married. Of course. Why wouldn't he be? I tried hiding my disappointment. But, he said, it's not the kind of marriage you think. It's convenient. A well-rehearsed show for family, friends, society. The person I sleep next to isn't the person I love. I stayed silent, waiting. Have you ever questioned your sexuality? He asked, straight to the point. His sincerity disarmed me. Every day, I confessed, since I started working with you. He wasn't surprised, just nodded like he knew. Me too, or I questioned myself. Years, decades. Now I don't question. I know. The waiter came to refill our coffees. We waited in silence as he walked away. The rain outside had intensified, creating a curtain that isolated us from the rest of the world. Want the truth? He said, eyes on his coffee. I fell in love once. It was intense, desperate. A student from another class I taught 15 years ago. Dark hair, dark eyes, great laugh. He made me feel alive for the first time. Each word was a confession, each pause heavy. Started with conversations after class, then coffee, then dinner. Then, it happened. 6 months of something intense, hidden, urgent. Hotels, deleted messages, lies. It was exhausting and the most real thing I've ever felt. What happened? I asked, already dreading the answer. Someone saw us. Got a picture. 3 days later, it was everywhere in my company. Lost my job. My family found out. It was devastating. Parents didn't talk to me for 2 years. Friends disappeared. His family was conservative too. He chose them. We never spoke again. My throat tightened. It was like watching my future play out in his past. Then I met my wife. She was dealing with the same thing. We made a deal. Marriage for show, separate lives, mutual protection, works perfectly. To everyone, we're the ideal couple. To us, we're just 2 people who happen to live together. He finally looked at me. What I saw broke me open. Regret, pain, but also fierce determination. You know why I invited you? Why I pushed for this? I shook my head, unable to speak. Because you're exactly where I was 15 years ago. Fighting yourself. Suppressing something real because you're scared what people will think. Building walls around your own heart. Tears began forming in my eyes. I tried to blink them back, but it was useless. And I don't want that for you, he said, voice firm now. Don't hide who you are. Don't marry someone you don't love for appearances. Don't spend 20 years realizing you wasted your life being who others needed you to be. A tear finally escaped, rolling hot down my cheek. I quickly wiped it with the back of my hand, but another followed. I hate myself, he said. And those 3 words carried so much weight. For giving up. For not fighting. For taking the easy route of lies instead of the hard route of truth. And the worst part? It's too late for me now. My entire life is built on this lie. Changing it would destroy too many people. He reached across the table, hesitated, then put his hand on mine. Warm, firm, real. But you still have time. You can choose differently. Be honest with yourself. Actually live, not just get by. We stayed like that for what felt like forever, and no time at all. Around us, the cafe hummed on cups, voices, the hiss of the espresso machine. But our world had shrunk to just this table, this moment, this connection between 2 broken people. I'm so scared, I finally said. My voice came out rough, cracked. I know. Fear is natural. But you know what's worse than fear? I looked at him, waiting. Regret. Fear passes. Regret stays. He squeezed my hand once, then let go and leaned back. He quickly wiped his eyes, almost embarrassed. Sorry. Didn't mean to break down like that. Don't, I said. Thank you. For trusting me. For seeing me. He smiled that sad smile I was getting to know. That's what you need. To be seen. For real. Not the version you show everyone, but the actual you. The silence was comfortable. The kind that happens between people who've just shared something that changes everything forever. Outside, the rain was subsiding. The afternoon light filtered through the clouds, creating patterns of shadow and light on the tables around us. Can I ask you a question now? He said, his voice softer. My heart raced again. I knew what was coming. When you think about intimacy, about real connection, about being with someone, who do you see? The question hung in the air between us. It was the question. The one I had avoided answering for myself for years. The one I kept locked deep in my mind, afraid of what the answer might mean. I opened my mouth, closed it, tried again. The words were there, on the tip of my tongue, fighting to come out after being trapped for so long. I began, feeling my heart race. I've never said this out loud before. He said nothing, just waited, giving me space, giving me time. And suddenly, I know I'm ready to finally say it. I take a deep breath. The AC hums, way too loud in the silence. My heart's pounding so hard he can definitely hear it. He sits a meter away, waiting. No pressure. Just there. The word came out shaky. I swallowed hard. I've never said this out loud. Never. Daniel nodded slowly, his eyes on mine. No judgment, just presence. I'm gay. 3 words. I've rehearsed them 1,000 times in my head. The shower, driving, at 3 a.m. in the mirror. Never out loud, never to anyone. And now they're out, floating between us, real, irreversible. My whole body shakes, not just from fear. It's like something massive is breaking free inside me. Something I've been carrying so long I forgot how to breathe without it. I'm 32, I continue, words tumbling out. And this is the first time I'm saying it. First time. You get that? 32 years holding it in, pretending, lying, my whole life built on that lie. The tears come. Hot, unexpected, unstoppable. I try wiping them away, but more keep falling. Sorry, I mutter. I didn't Don't, Daniel says, firm but gentle. Never apologize. Not here. He shifts, just a few inches closer, but enough so I'm not alone in this abyss. I have a girlfriend, I say, voice breaking. Clara. 3 years. She wants to get married. Her mom's already planning it, and I pretend to be happy. Smile in photos. Kiss her hello. Say, I love you at bedtime. I cover my face. The shame is physical alive, crawling on my skin. But every time I do that, every time I touch her and pretend, I hate myself more. And the worst part, Daniel? She's not to blame. She actually loves me. She's planning our future, and I'm a liar, a coward. Look at me, Daniel says softly. Takes me a second. When I drop my hands and meet his eyes, it's not pity, not horror, not disgust. It's understanding, acceptance, kindness. You're not a coward, he says, each word solid. You survived. You grew up in a world that said who you are isn't acceptable. It taught you to hide, lie, be afraid. You did what you had to. That's not cowardice. That's being human. Something breaks inside me. Or maybe heals. I can't tell the difference anymore. But I'm hurting her, I whisper. Every time I pretend, I hurt her. I know. Daniel doesn't sugarcoat it. Eventually you'll need to decide. About her, about you, about what life you want. But Lucas. He leans in. That doesn't have to happen now. Right now, you need to stop hating yourself. It's complicated. I know it is, but you have to. He pauses, eyes on mine. Tell me something. How long have you known? The question caught me off guard. Known. That I'm gay? He nodded. I take a breath. Always. Actually, always? Since 12? 13? But I buried it. Told myself it was a phase, it'd pass. I just needed the right girl. 20 years, Daniel says quietly. Alone with this. The way he says it, the weight hits me again. 20 years, 2 decades of living a lie. My parents can't know, I say, urgent. Never. My dad. You don't get it. He's that guy. Makes those homophobic jokes at barbecues, the ones everyone laughs at but hurt like hell. That's him. My mom just goes along with it. Always. And your friends? I laugh, but it's hollow. What friends? I have coworkers, guys I play soccer with, but real friends? People I could be actual me with? I shake my head. No. I spent years building an acceptable version of me that I don't know who I really am anymore. You just met him, Daniel says slowly. Right now. The Lucas who's here, telling the truth, crying, shaking, but real. That's the real Lucas. And he's incredibly brave. The tears feel different now. Lighter. Like they're washing something away. I'm afraid all the time, I confess. Someone finding out. Staring at another guy too long. Slipping in the locker room. Clara realizing that during sex I'm somewhere else. Just playing a role. Have you thought about leaving her? Every day. Every fucking day. The anger surprises me. But how? Do I tell her sorry? 3 years was a lie because I'm gay? It'll destroy her. And when she tells everyone, it destroys my family. And staying like this destroys you, Daniel says, gentle but real. You thought about that? The cost of this lie on you? Of course I have. 4 a.m. nights staring at the ceiling. Mornings. I need 20 minutes to get out of bed because pretending one more day feels impossible. Seeing a gay couple on the street and feeling an envy that physically hurts. I'd rather not exist, I whisper. Days when it'd be easier if I just wasn't here. So I wouldn't have to deal with this. The silence gets heavy. Daniel takes a breath. When he speaks, his voice has something different vulnerability. Lucas, listen carefully, okay? I nod. This exhaustion, wanting to disappear, it's not because you're gay. It's because you're living someone else's life. The denial is killing you, not the truth. He lets that land. I know it seems impossible, Like telling people who you are will destroy everything. But I'll guarantee this. Staying hidden destroys everything too. Just slower, more painful. So what do I do? It comes out like a scream. What? Daniel? How do I escape this? He pauses, eyes on mine. You're not broken, he says, words falling like stones in still water. Not wrong, not sick. You don't need fixing. You're gay, and that's as normal, natural, valid as any orientation. The only thing broken is a world that made you think you had to hide. Something shifts. I can't explain it. For the first time, someone gave me permission to exist, to be real. You're brave, he says. Not because of who you are, because you survived, because you're here, speaking the truth for the first time. That's the bravest thing there is. I can't speak. I just cry deep, liberating, from somewhere I didn't know existed. Daniel doesn't try to touch me, doesn't offer empty words, just stays present, holding space, letting me feel, letting me exist. Time disappears. Could be 5 minutes, could be 20. Eventually the crying stops, my breathing steadies. When I finally look at him, something's different. The problems didn't disappear. Clara's still real. My parents are still my parents. The world's still the same. But something inside me shifted. Lighter. Freer. Daniel leans back, giving me room. So, he says softly, you've said it out loud now. You've heard yourself say who you are. What do you want to do with that? The question sits between us. What do I want? With this truth that's now out in the world, that I can't ignore or pretend doesn't exist. I stop, take a breath, try again. I want to stop hating myself, stop pretending. I want to be real. That's a start, Daniel says, and there's a gentle smile in his eyes. But I don't know how. It hurts to admit. I spent so long being the Lucas everyone wanted that I don't know who the real one is. Don't know where to start. He nods, like he expected this. Start small, he says. Every day, tell yourself I am who I am. Stop fighting it. Explore what that means at your pace. And eventually, he pauses. You'll need harder choices. About Clara, your family, what life you want. But not today, I say, hopeful. Not today, he says. Today you did the hardest thing. You were honest, with yourself and someone else. The rest comes in time. I look at this stranger who somehow became the first person to actually see me. Thank you, I whisper, for not leaving, for not thinking I'm disgusting or... Lucas. He stops me, gentle but firm. Never. There's nothing disgusting or wrong about you. Nothing. I breathe. Those words. Nothing wrong. I want to believe them. Everything in me wants to believe. I want to stop hiding, I said. And this time my voice came out firmer. I don't know how. I don't know when. But I want to stop living this lie. Daniel smiled, a small smile, but genuine. Then that, he said, is your answer. That's where you begin. And there, in that room with the whispering air conditioning and a nearly empty tissue box, something began. Not a revolution. Not an instant transformation. But a beginning. A choice. A possibility. And there, in that moment, with my coach sitting in front of me after I finally had the courage to tell the truth, I expected. I don't know what. Judgment? Discomfort? That awkward silence I feared so much? But Roberto just took a deep breath, leaned forward, and said something that completely changed the direction of this conversation. You know what the difference is between a champion and someone who quits halfway? He asked. And before I could answer, he continued. The champion faces what they're afraid to look at. You just did that. I wasn't expecting to be compared to a champion in that moment. I was expecting. I don't even know. But Roberto had this ability to turn every situation into an opportunity for growth. And I realized he was doing exactly that with me now. Lucas, he continued, do you think I never went through this? That I never had to look at parts of myself that I spent decades avoiding? He stood up and walked to the office window. The late afternoon light cast long shadows on the floor. when I finally admitted to myself who I really was. I was 42 years old, married for 20 years, 2 kids, an entire life built on top of a lie I believed was truth. He paused, or maybe that I wanted to believe was truth. I didn't know what to say. Roberto had never shared this with me before. And you know what the most liberating moment of my life was? He turned to face me. It wasn't when I told my wife. It wasn't when I came out publicly. It was when I, alone in my room, looked in the mirror and said out loud, "I'm gay, and that's okay." Tears started running down my face without me being able to control them. Sounds simple, right? But it took 42 years for me to be able to say those words. And you know why? Because I was afraid that if I admitted it, everything would crumble. My career, my family, my identity as a man, as a father, as everything. And did it crumble? I asked, barely able to speak. Roberto smiled. Not a happy smile, but the smile of someone who survived a storm. Some things did crumble, yes. My marriage didn't survive, obviously. Some friends distanced themselves. My relationship with my parents became complicated for a while. He sat back down. But you know what didn't crumble? Me. For the first time in my life, I didn't crumble, because I was finally being sustained by something solid. The truth. He placed his hand on my shoulder. Lucas, you're years ahead of where I was. You're in your 20s. You still have time to build an entire life based on authenticity, not on performance. Do you understand what a gift that is? I nodded, still processing everything. But I don't know how to do this, I admitted. I don't know how to. How to be this publicly. How to tell my family, my teammates, my... Hey! Roberto interrupted me. Who said you have to do all of this tomorrow? Who said you have to make a public announcement and post on social media? He grabbed a pen and paper from the desk. I'm going to teach you something I learned in therapy. Small steps. Microscopic actions. You don't need to come out to the entire world on a Tuesday afternoon. He started writing. First step, you already did it. You admitted it to yourself. Second step, you told one trusted person. Me. Third step. What's the third step? I asked. You decide. It could be telling one more person. It could be going to a space where you can be yourself without explanations. It could simply be stopping actively lying when someone asks about your love life. That last part caught me by surprise. Stopping actively lying? Yes. You don't need to announce anything. But when someone asks if you're dating anyone, you don't need to invent an imaginary girlfriend. You can simply say, "I'm not dating anyone at the moment," and change the subject. Small step. Less lying, more truth. It made so much sense, it hurt. I did that for years, Roberto continued. Small truths, small authenticities. Until one day, the truth became bigger than the lie, and it became impossible to keep pretending. Do you regret it? I asked. Waiting so long? Roberto thought for a long moment. I regret having suffered alone for so long. I regret not having sought help earlier, therapy, community, anything. But I don't regret my timing, because it was the right timing for me. And your timing is yours, Lucas. There's no universal timeline for this. He picked up his phone. But what I can give you are tools, resources, community. He started typing. There's a support group I attended when I was in the process of coming out. They meet every Thursday. It's people of all ages, all at different stages of the journey. Some haven't told anyone yet. Others have been out for years. But everyone understands. He showed me the address on his phone. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. You can just go and listen. But I guarantee it will be liberating to be in a place where you don't have to perform heterosexuality. Perform heterosexuality. I had never thought of it in those terms. But it was exactly what I did every single day. And there's one more thing, Roberto continued. That was crucial for me. Therapy with someone specialized in LGBTQ+ issues. It's not the same as regular therapy. It's someone who understands the nuances, the specific fears, the internal pressure. He opened his notepad and wrote down a name. This therapist saved me. Literally. There were moments when I was so lost, so terrified by what I was feeling, that I thought about giving up on everything. He paused, and I saw a vulnerability in him I'd never seen before. "Lucas, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Have you ever thought about hurting yourself?" The question caught me off guard. No one had ever asked me that directly. Sometimes I think it would be easier if I just didn't exist. If I didn't have to deal with this. Roberto nodded, without judgment, without shock. "Thank you for being honest. And I need you to know that these thoughts are normal when we're carrying such a heavy secret. But they're also a sign that you need support. Not a month from now. Now." He picked up his phone again. "I'm going to do something. I'm going to call this therapist now and see if she can fit you in this week, as an emergency. Is that okay?" I was going to say it wasn't necessary, that I was fine, that I could wait. But then I remembered what Roberto had said. Champions face what they're afraid to look at. "Okay," I said. And in that moment, something changed in me. I can't explain exactly what, but for the first time in maybe my entire life, I felt like I wasn't alone in this. Roberto made the call, explained the situation, got me an appointment in 2 days. When he hung up, I said, "Thank you for all of this, for not treating me differently, for not being uncomfortable." Roberto laughed. "Lucas, son, I spent 20 years of my life uncomfortable with my own existence. You think I was going to put that weight on someone else?" He got up and went to the small fridge in the corner of the office, grabbed 2 bottles of water and offered me one. You know what else no one told me when I came out? That it was going to be okay. Everyone was uncomfortable, or tried to change the subject, or gave me those pity-filled hugs. He opened his bottle. "So I'm going to tell you what I needed to hear. It's going to be okay. It won't be easy, it won't be quick, but it will be okay." I drank the water, trying to process everything. "And you know how I know it's going to be okay?" Roberto continued. "Because you're brave. You just proved that. And courage isn't not being afraid. Courage is being afraid and doing it anyway." He looked at his watch. "Look, I know you're probably emotionally exhausted right now. I know because I remember what it was like when I told someone for the first time. Feels like you ran a marathon, right?" I laughed because that's exactly what it was. "But there's something I want you to do today. Before you go home, before you go back to the performance, to the mask." "What?" "I want you to go to that cafe 2 blocks from here. Arte and Cafe. You know it?" I knew it. It was kind of an alternative place, full of students and artists. "I want you to go in there, order whatever you want, sit at a table, and just exist, without performing, without monitoring your gestures, your voice, the way you sit. Just be. That's it? That's it. It might seem simple, but I guarantee it'll be one of the hardest and most liberating things you'll do. Because for the first time, you'll be in a public space being authentically you." I felt my heart race just thinking about it. What if someone notices? What if someone what? What if someone notices you're gay? Lucas, you are gay. That's not something you need to hide. It's something you are. And the more you practice simply existing without apologizing for your existence, the more natural it will feel. He was right. I knew he was right. "Okay," I said. "I'll do it." "Great. And afterwards text me. Doesn't need to be anything elaborate. Just an I did it. Deal?" "Deal." I got up to leave, but before reaching the door, I turned around. "Roberto, why are you doing all this for me?" He smiled. That genuine smile I'd learned to recognize. "Because someone did it for me. And because..." He paused. "Because when I was where you are now, I swore to myself that if I survived, if I made it to the other side intact, I would help whoever was in the same situation. It's my way of turning pain into purpose." I felt a lump in my throat. "And also," he continued, "because you're an incredible kid, Lucas, with or without football. And I want you to have the chance to discover who you are when you're not trying to be who others expect you to be. I couldn't hold back the tears this time. Roberto hugged me. Not that quick. Masculine hug that men give each other in football. A real hug. A hug that said, "You're not alone." When I left his office, the sun was starting to set. I walked to Arte and Cafe. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it. I stopped in front of the door, took a deep breath, and then I thought, champions face what they're afraid of. I pushed the door and went in. The cafe was moderately full, indie music playing in the background, smell of fresh coffee and carrot cake. I ordered a cappuccino and a piece of brownie, and then I did something I'd never done before. I chose a table without thinking strategically about who might see me, without calculating angles and escape routes. I sat down, relaxed my shoulders, let my wrist fall naturally as I stirred my coffee, didn't force my voice to be deeper when I thanked the waitress. I just existed. And you know what happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Nobody looked, nobody whispered, nobody cared. I was just another person having coffee on a Thursday afternoon. But for me, it was everything. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't pretending. I grabbed my phone and texted Roberto. I did it, he responded in seconds. I knew you could. This is just the beginning, champ. And there, sitting in that cafe with my cappuccino getting cold and my brownie half-eaten, I realized something fundamental. Freedom didn't come from some grand public revelation. It didn't come from coming out in a viral post or making an emotional speech. Freedom came from these small moments of authenticity, from these small choices to be genuine instead of performative. And I wanted more of it. I didn't want to be afraid anymore. And then he asked me the question I was afraid to answer, even to myself. So what now? What are you going to do with everything you've discovered? We were back at the training field, the same place where it all began, where I had arrived thinking I was going to learn about soccer, about techniques, about how to improve my performance. And in a way, I did learn, but not the way I imagined. I sat in the bleachers, in the same spot where I used to watch others train, always with that feeling of being on the outside looking in. But now it was different. I was looking at the same field, but with completely new eyes. I don't know, I admitted. It's strange, you know? For years I thought that if people found out, it would be the end of everything. That I'd lose everyone, that I'd be kicked out, rejected. And now that I've told, that I've spoken it out loud for the first time in my life, I don't know what comes next. He sat beside me, with that calm he always had. As if he had all the time in the world, as if there was no rush at all. Do you think you need to have all the answers now? It's not that, I replied. It's just, my whole life I followed a script, you know? Do this, behave like this, don't show that, hide this other thing. And now I've broken the script, torn up the screenplay, and I don't know what the next scene is. He gave a half smile, one of those that says more than 1,000 words. So, you finally understood. I looked at him, confused. Understood what? That there never was a script. That this whole thing about how you should be, about what others will think, about what's the right way to exist. All of it was always an illusion, a prison we build for ourselves, because it's easier to live within familiar walls than to face the terrifying freedom of being who you really are. I felt a tightness in my chest, but it wasn't that tightness of anguish that had accompanied me for so long. It was something else. It was like something was expanding inside me, occupying a space that had previously been compressed, suffocated. What about my family, my friends, the team? What about them? What if they don't accept me? What if they change toward me? He took a deep breath, looking at the field ahead of us. Some people will change. That's true. Some will surprise you positively. Others will disappoint you. And there are those who will take time to process, to understand, to accept. But you know what I've learned over all these years? What? That the people who really matter, the ones who truly love you, they're not going anywhere. They might need time to adjust, to understand. But true love, real love, it has no conditions. It doesn't say, I love you as long as you're the way I want you to be. It says, I love you because you're you. I felt my eyes burning. I didn't try to hide it. I didn't pretend everything was okay. I let the tears flow because for the first time in my life, I didn't need to be strong all the time. I didn't need to perform masculinity. I didn't need to prove anything. I'm scared, I confessed. Scared of being rejected. Scared of losing the people I love. Scared of not being strong enough to handle all of this. He put his hand on my shoulder, firmly, with presence. You know what was the bravest thing you've ever done in your life? I thought about the tough training sessions, the difficult games, the times I played injured, the matches I decided in the final minutes. I don't know. What? It was what you just did. It was sitting here being honest, admitting your fear. That's true courage. It's not the absence of fear. It's looking it in the eyes and continuing to walk anyway. It's being vulnerable when everyone taught you that vulnerability is weakness. It's being authentic when everyone taught you to perform. And then he said something that changed everything. Something I'll carry for the rest of my life. I'm proud of you. 5 words, just 5 words. But they were the 5 words I'd spent my whole life wanting to hear from my father and never did. They were the 5 words I needed to hear from someone I trusted, someone who knew me, someone who had seen my struggle. I'm proud of you. Not, I'm proud of the player you are. Not, I'm proud of your results. Not, I'm proud of what you've achieved. I'm proud of you, of who you are, of you having the courage to take off the mask, of you having chosen truth over performance. I fell apart. I simply fell apart. And he hugged me, and for the first time I understood what it meant to be truly seen, to be truly accepted, to be truly loved. I don't know how long we stayed like that. Could have been a minute, could have been 10. But when I finally pulled away, when I finally managed to look at him again, I wasn't the same person anymore. Thank you, was all I could manage to say. You don't need to thank me. You just need to do one thing. What? Live. Really live. Not survive, not perform, not pretend. Live. Authentically, completely, without apologizing for who you are. He stood up, extended his hand to me. And I'll be here, not as your coach, as your friend, as someone who went through this, who understands, who knows the path is hard but worth it. You're not alone. I took his hand and stood up. And when I looked again at that training field, at that place that had been the stage for so much anguish, so much fear, so much loneliness, I saw something different. I saw a place where I had learned the most important lesson of my life. Not about soccer, about myself. Because in the end, this story was never about sports. It was about a boy who spent his entire life hiding, who built walls so high that even he couldn't see himself anymore, who performed happiness while dying inside. And it was about the man who taught me that authenticity isn't weakness, that vulnerability isn't failure, that being who you are, without masks, without performances, without apologies, that's the bravest thing you can do. He taught me there's no right way to be a man. That masculinity isn't a prison, it's an expression. That strength isn't never crying, it's having the courage to feel. That courage isn't the absence of fear, it's looking at it and continuing to walk anyway. And most important, he taught me I deserve to be loved exactly as I am. Not in spite of who I am, because of who I am. When I think back to that 17-year-old who thought he was learning to kick better, I feel so much tenderness. He didn't know it, but he was about to learn the only thing that mattered, how to be himself. So what about me now? What about next? I haven't told everyone, still processing, discovering, learning to live without hiding. But one thing I know, I'm not alone anymore, not pretending anymore, not dying inside while smiling outside. Hard days? Yes. Moments of fear? Yes. Times I want the comfort zone back, the safety of the lie? Yes. But then I hear his words. I'm proud of you. I take a breath and keep going. Because beyond the fear, there's something bigger. Freedom, peace, real love for who you actually are. Not love for your performance. Love for you. So I'm asking you now, Whoever's listening, I want to ask you something. What truth are you hiding? What mask have you worn so long you forgot what's underneath? What version of yourself are you performing while your real self suffocates? But most important, who's your person? Who in your life really sees you, accepts you, gives you permission to just be? We all need someone like that. Someone who looks at us when we're down, broken, finally taking off the mask and says, "I'm proud of you." Maybe you haven't found them yet. Maybe you're looking. Maybe you're scared to look. But they're out there. And when you find them, when you're brave enough to be vulnerable, authentic, real, everything shifts. Everything. Because we spend our lives chasing achievements, results, what others think. We build empires of performances, masks so good we fool ourselves. But real freedom, real peace, real love only happen when you take off the mask and say, "This is me. Really." No filters, no act, no apologies. If this hits you, if this story touched something, leave a comment. Tell your story. Share your truth. The more we talk about this, the more honest we get, the more we choose realness instead of performance, the easier it becomes for the next person. And if you know someone struggling with hidden truths, share this. Because sometimes a story is exactly what someone needs to find the courage to write their own. Thank you for listening, for staying, for letting me share the scariest, most vulnerable, most true thing I have. And remember, you're not alone. Never were. Your story matters. Your truth matters. You matter, just as you are.